All right, everybody. Thank you for joining our user group today. It's the November one. This is the second one I've been a part of. Katie and I are very happy to have you come here and join us today. I'll walk through really quick just these kind of housekeeping slides we get from Adobe for what's going on in the month of November and some reminders on kind of what the user group's about and kind of how to behave in here. And then we will kick it over to Kate Adams, our excellent presenter from Drift, who we're super happy to have present for us today. So first of all, just a couple quick reminders. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this. We have a lot of returning folks. The rules for the user group, kind of the main three here. No self-promotion or pitching of any kind is permitted. Don't contact folks outside of the user group without their consent. Definitely is a place to like network and stuff. So if you make contacts with people that who want to communicate, by all means do that. That's part of what we're here for. And then if Mug users share their use cases or kind of show their instance or talk through something that they're working on, don't share that information with their consent. Staying connected with the Mug, I think probably as most people got the invitations for this, Bevy is the best way to stay informed about the Twin Cities Mug and all the other mugs, so you can use that link down there to sign up. I'm also going to try to do a better job of posting these out on LinkedIn and in things like the Mops Bros Slack groups and some other channels out there. But Bevy is definitely the most consistent, best way to hear about us. Purple Select, I think we're all familiar with this. Marketo is Influitive kind of gamification deal where you can win points and get Marketo t-shirts and that kind of thing. If you're not part of that, sign up for it. Upcoming opportunities for Mug members. So I think what we're supposed to do at this point is let people kind of go around the room and talk about any open opportunities that they know of, either at their company or just maybe they've gotten hit up on LinkedIn or anything. So I can start. I actually had one lined up for a Tumos for an analyst role, but I just heard this morning that we filled it. So unfortunately, that's no longer open. But I'm hopeful. We've been doing some hiring for both platform operations folks and campaign operations folks. So I'm hoping next time that we have one of these meetings, I can talk a little bit about a couple of those roles, but I don't think we're looking for them at this exact moment. But I'll kind of open it up. Does anyone else on the call, either at their company or just know of any roles out there for potential opportunities for Mug members?
Yeah, Perforce is hiring senior ops marketing specialists. We're looking for someone with some experience to come in and work. We have an environment with 4 Marketo instances, and we have a HubSpot as well. So there's definitely a diversity of environments that you get to work in. I can work with Katie to get that posted. I posted it just in the chat last time, but I'll work with her to get it sent out or posted or however.
Yeah, perfect. And that's a good call. By all means, work with Katie, or if you want to throw it in the chat. But anyone else who has info on a role handy, if you want to put that in the chat, I can kind of collect those and see if I could divvy them up in a good way, share them with the group. Any other roles out there?
Yes, this is Carly Byron, and my company CommScope is looking for a marketing operations manager. So we have 2 instances of Marketo, one Pardot and one Marketing Cloud, and we're actually working to merge them all into one. So there are 2 other marketing operations managers here, myself included, and we're looking for a 3rd one to add to the bunch. So I'll send that link over via chat.
Awesome. That sounds like a cool role.
Recording is on.
I don't know if I'm allowed, but actually, so I'm the speaker, but we have an open role for a director of marketing ops over at Drift. We're looking for kind of a marketing ops rock star to come in and lead the function. We've got 2 really talented folks in marketing ops already, and we're looking for a dedicated leader there. We have 1 Marketo instance. Thank goodness, as I'm hearing so many people with different instances, and 1 Salesforce instance. So might be a easier bit of a game than some of you are kind of working right now, but would love for you guys to apply if anybody's interested.
Thanks, Kate. You are most certainly allowed as the speaker. Anyone else? Okay, cool. Keep on moving. Applications for Marketo Champions are due this Friday the 20th. So definitely encourage anyone who's thinking about that to get those in. Hopefully you've got a little bit of thought into it by now, if we're hoping to turn it around by Friday, but definitely a good thing to work into. Here's just kind of the boilerplate about Summit. It's going to be remote again next year, April 13th to the 15th. I'm sure they'll have plenty of information for us about that as we get closer. And then here's a look. I know we were talking about all the different virtual mugs people have been able to join. Here's a look at what's out there for November. A couple more yet this month following ours, the Seattle and the Austin mug. And I think my boss's boss, Nate, who's a great guy, runs the Seattle mug, so I'm sure that would be an excellent one to join.
My boss used to run it for years, so that's funny. I bet if I was my boss, you'll have to. That's
cool.
That's a good one. They've been really active for a long time, from what I understand.
Yep. Yeah, and I know
Yeah.
they've been talking about combining with like San Diego and San Francisco and doing like a big West Coast one where there's a giant one. So
Yeah,
I'll hear more about that. Yeah.
That looks like a great topic too. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
That's super cool.
Okay. And then that's it for our. Sorry, again, I fumble around with this. That is it for our intro slides here. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Kate Adams from Drift, who we're very happy to have join us today and give us an excellent presentation. So Kate, as we go through this, are you open to taking questions at the end? I can kind of keep track of them in the chat if that makes sense and take a look at those.
Yeah, I'm very much open to taking questions at the end or questions as we go along. Conversations is kind of our thing, so I love to keep things conversational for sure.
Excellent. That sounds great. You should be able to go ahead and share your screen then. Let me know if you have any trouble with that.
Cool. I am working on that right now, so give me 1 sec.
Absolutely.
Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful. Move that into present mode. So thanks everybody for having me. I really, really appreciate being a guest on these. I'm a big marketing geek myself, so it's actually one of my favorite aspects of working at Drift is that I get to talk with other marketing folks just like yourself each and every day and kind of get the inside scoop on what everyone's doing. And so this morning, what we'd put together is a presentation on how to fight back against database decay. And this is more prevalent now pretty much than ever. Quick intro on me. I'm Kate Adams, VP of Marketing here at Drift. I'm focused on demand generation, so I head up the demand gen function. And for those folks that are unfamiliar with Drift, Drift is a revenue acceleration platform for conversational that joins conversational marketing and conversational sales in order for people to meet your buyers where they are, which is on their website in the most engaging way possible. And that is the only pitch that I'll give about Drift, but just a quick intro on me and my background and where I'm from. But let's dive right in. I think this is the last 5 months. It's difficult for us to keep updating all these presentations. But over the last, I think we're in month 7 now. You're joining me here today. Unfortunately, Blue Jeans doesn't have those cool virtual backgrounds like Zoom does. So you get to see kind of how the sausage is made. Is that I'm in my basement right now, working from home, and there's nothing more clear that, look, the last 7 months have accelerated digital transformation by 6 years. And that's the source of that data is from Twilio, who did the COVID-19 digital engagement report that came out about a month and a half ago now. And that was what they did was they surveyed 2,500 enterprise marketers and asked them that. And so, like, think about that for a minute, right? Over the last 7 months, not only have we lived through an incredible world health crisis, unbelievable social movements, a crazy, hectic political environment, and not to mention shifted completely to a work from home environment if we weren't in that environment before. But also gone through this incredible transformation of having lived 6 years over the last 7 months. And I don't know about all of you, but I certainly feel it now more than ever. And when we looked back in March, one of the things that we have the privilege of having insight into a lot of data. And one of the things that we wanted to look at, one of our tools is able to understand and aggregate the number of out of office replies we get, or number of hard bounces that we get from email, or number of this person no longer works here data. And what we saw that March 2020 saw an 18.74% increase in bounces, changed job, or left company replies overall. And what you're seeing here is data from the insured unemployment rate in terms of we've layered this data on. So what you see is invalid email hits that we're collecting over time, and then the unemployment rate actually happening over time there. And it's astounding to me, right? This is exactly why database decay, not only have we gone through this digital transformation acceleration over the last 7 months, but what's happening now is our databases are changing faster now than they ever have before, right? And so there's really no time like the present to check up on the health of your database. Pre-pandemic, the experts in the field were talking about your database decays about 1/3 over the course of the year. This data tells you that this year that's happening way more quickly and at such a more accelerated fashion, right? And so, but really, why do you care? Like, why should you care about this? What does it actually matter? And so what we did was pull together a bunch of insights here on exactly why you should care, exactly what the cost of all of this bad data is costing you and your organization each and every day. And according to Gartner, 2/3 of a sales rep's day is spent on non-selling activities. Otherwise, many folks call that non-revenue generating activities, right? Such as data entry and prospect research, etc., right? If those folks are spending all of that time doing that, we want to make sure that they have accurate data within that CRM so that they're researching the correct and accurate prospects, right? People that are actually still in their jobs that are viable, actual leads that they can follow up on, right? 82% of sales executives feel their sales reps are challenged by the time it takes to research prospects, right? So all of this research, no matter how great your data augmentation process is, it's not, if it's based on data that is old or out of date, right? That is a huge hurdle to overcome for these organizations. Zoom Info, this is what I was talking about before, 30% or more of your data in your database decays each year. That was pre-pandemic. So just step back from a moment and think about over the course of the year, normal run rate was 30%. Based on what we're seeing now, I'm going to be, and already F. Ford mentioned and admitted that I'm a big data geek, and Caitlin can certainly attest to that. But I'm really interested to see a year from now, what does that percentage actually look like across all our orgs? According to Eloqua, which is like the cost of one bad record in your marketing automation platform or your CRM is $11. And that's based on all of the work that sales reps actually put on it, all of the work that your marketing teams actually put within that record, all of the potential traps that you're falling into, right? Like the reputation of your IP address, all of those things, that's the cost of just one bad record, $11. And then finally, Serious Decisions is talking about a 66% increase in revenue the increase that revenue organizations could see as a result of strong data quality standards. 66% is what they believe that increase could be. That's incredible, right? This is why you should care. And hopefully I got your attention there. But the biggest thing for us when we give any of these presentations is I want you folks to walk away with actually actionable things that you can go do in your organization to improve this, right? It's one thing to lay out a problem. It's a whole other thing to actually give you tactics that you can do to actually do that. So I'll walk you through 6 steps from our perspective that you can do to get for a healthier database. So number 1, this is kind of a no-brainer, and I'm sure some of you folks, if I could see you, which I can't because when I'm sharing my screen I can't, so I apologize if I'm not reacting to anything, any visual cues here, but number 1 is get your emails in the inbox, right? Sending to bad contacts is obviously going to impact your ability to send to the good ones. Most ESPs, and Marketo included, are going to penalize your sender reputation, impacting your ability to send out campaigns if your bounce rate is over 5%. So if you're not doing this already, which knowing the members of these mug groups, as I've been talking to many of them across the country, I know that you are all the cream of the crop. And so I would imagine that all of you are already doing this. But very clearly, like, please, if you're not already, monitor for email deliverability rates below 97%. For us, we have a mechanism where there's a flag thrown when we get to that below 97%, where we immediately stop, pause, and say, okay, what did we send? Who did we send it to? What happened here that got us to that below 97% threshold? Number 2, avoid spam flags with personalizations. We are really passionate about this here at Drift because our brand ethos is really all about one of the core components that we would assert is wrong with B2B today is the idea that we've taken all of the human elements out of it, right? We've moved to this space where we're putting acronyms within our acronyms. As marketers, we are generating MQLs to put in our MAPs, to put in our CRMs. We move from MQL to SQL to SQL to SQO, like however you want to call it. We've got BDRs, SDRs, IDRs, MDRs, whatever acronyms your organization has chosen, right? We've removed this human element. Like, guess what? Actually, it's not just an MQL, it's Brian on the other side of this. Brian is an actual human being, right? And it's difficult to always remember that. But that's something we are religious about it here at Drift. And so a couple hints for us here. Humans don't use all caps typically, right? Those kind of spam trigger words of like act now, buy direct, instant access, all those things. And certainly, look, you've got to test this. I don't want to make sweeping statements, right? I am trying very, very hard to always instill a culture of test and learn within our own organizations. But this is a really core component of this. The next one I know I'm going to get some pushback on, but humans don't communicate in HTML. Right? So I know that this is, and certainly we go to the extreme here at Drift, we don't send any HTML emails from Drift. All of our emails are text-based. And why? Because we don't believe that the time invested in making those really, and trust me, look, I've spent many years in prior organizations working through HTML. In the olden days, I actually instituted Dreamweaver for our marketing teams so that they could help navigate the HTML creation process. But the reality is humans don't do that. That's not a human touch point way. And what we see is that we have much higher engagement rates with our emails in a text-based form than ever in an HTML-based form. And last, humans don't flag personalized emails as spam, right? So that's the key component, right? And when I say personalization, I want to be very clear, and this is another touch point too. Personalization, when I say that, I don't mean dropping your first name token in your email and calling that personalized. I know all of you are much better than that or are doing much better than that. But when I say personalization, I mean really personalization based on location, industry, company size, role, function. What's not here is prior behavior, right? What are all of the, how can you bring an element of personalization into each and every one of those into each and every one of your emails? How can you really create that wow factor so that, because I think the other key component for B2B that I think many of us have kind of forgotten about is that B2B is based on relationships, and relationships are based on trust. And in order for me to, or in order for anyone to gain my trust, please show me that you know me, show me that you've done your homework, show me that you understand, right? I know that you have access to all this data. In the recent 2020 State of Conversational Marketing report, one of the insights that we had is people understand that you have all of this data. They are frustrated when they provide you with all of their data and you don't use it to improve your messaging to them. So really, how can, and we are actively working on this on a day-by-day basis, but dividing our list, and every time we've done it, every single time that we have pushed the envelope on how we can personalize more and segment further, the outcomes are always better, every single time. So really pushing all of you to think further, pushing your teams really to think further in that way. Number 3, how can you leverage automation? So whether it's a solution that we provide, and that's certainly not my objective here, but whether it's a solution we provide or any other solution in the market, but how can you leverage automation and technology so that you can find those outdated contacts and either update them or purge them from your database completely, right? This is a screenshot of our own instance of Drift email, actually showing that we've been able to update 5,000 contacts just from the information that we get back from those auto responses or bounces, right? All of those things, we've been able to source 1,100, just under 1,200 new contacts from that. And not to mention, I don't know how all of you are doing it today. Prior to having this tool in my arsenal, I was having somebody in our SDR organization kind of sort through all of those auto replies that we got back from our email send in order to search for that needle in a haystack, right? For the person that was actually saying like, hey, I want to talk to somebody in your organization. Because I was always in such fear of like, oh man, I know that there's a lot of noise there, but what about that one deal that's coming in that I have not followed up with because somebody replied to a do not reply email address? And so we've been able to source 2,000 email replies, which is amazing. So whatever automation you do, whatever technology you use, or just there are so many technology solutions out there to help make your job easier so that this isn't such a manual process, right? Number 4, use filters to prioritize those unknowns. 75% of marketers are looking to better target specific segments, right? 75% are looking to better target specific segments. This is incredible, right? And so what's leading this, one of the hypotheses around what's behind this change is really everybody's talking about account-based marketing now, right? Everybody's either moving there, doing some flavor of it. Maybe you don't want to call it account-based marketing, but it's getting very specific with your ideal customer profile and ICP. But how can you prioritize unknowns by focusing on segments that have shown intent to buy and are in the right stage of your buying cycle, right? So the action there is connect multiple data sources to enrich high priority segments first. So our own data, kind of what we call data waterfall on our end, is that we are vigilant about making sure that we're able to identify people within accounts. So we don't use the lead object in Salesforce. We only use the contact object, and we map contacts to accounts as soon as we possibly can. And so and we also only ask a user for their email address in every interaction with us. We don't have long forms. We use conversational marketing and chatbots for every interaction that we have on our website. And so what we do is after we capture that email address, we go augment with a bunch of different data sources. Again, I'm not trying to sell you on data sources. These aren't our own. So please trust me. Like first we go out and we check with Clearbit on account information and contact information to go source the rest of that data. If Clearbit doesn't have it and the sources are and the fields are still empty, we go to Zoom Info and check against that. If Zoom Info can't associate that email address back to a user or back to an account, then we actually send it to a firm in India who goes and does a manual lookup against that in order to make sure that kind of nobody gets left behind in our database and we're able to understand them, right? But whether it's, however you do that, whether you use an approach like ours are different, right? That's how we do it. And by doing that, you can really help yourself tremendously so that you can make sure that you're communicating with the people that matter most to you. Number 5, look for proof of life, right? I'm sure that many of you are doing this, but this goes back to the Gartner stat that I had talked about at the start of this presentation. Just last month I handed over. I managed the SDR organization at Drift, and I've since handed that over to the sales organization because we wanted to kind of unify the entire sales process from beginning to end within sales. And so one of the things that kept me up every single night was that stat from Gartner that 2/3 of folks in sales, their time is spent on, so 66% is spent on non-revenue generating activities. I was so vigilant with the SDR organization and the asks that were coming in from that organization on ensuring that any of those asks I could line back to revenue that was going to be generated, right? And if I could not, it had to be a really, really powerful reason as to why I would prioritize that to get done within the SDR org. And so again, because every minute that they have is another dollar that I can generate for the business. So couple actions here. One, weed out those inactive people from your database, especially if they've never been active. If you had just one sign of life that maybe brought them into your database, but you haven't seen anything, and every organization needs to set this timeline specifically based on the own behavior of your organization. And the best thing I can say is test this, right? But you can definitely see a drop-off point. Like we've done this analysis here at Drift, not here in my basement, but at Drift. And so that analysis for us is really about, like, if we haven't seen activity on you within the last 45 days, then we call it a day and we move you into this inactive bucket. And then from that inactive bucket, we have other timelines that we work through that we call you inactive or unknown. And then from there, like if we don't see a sign of life outside of another specific day window, then we move you out into like just what we call this is like there's the good, there's the unknown, and then there's the bad. We move you into that bad bucket where we're never going to email you or try to communicate with you again. And in fact, we'll remove you from the database altogether. Second action, double down on the people who are engaging with you, right? And this seems like a no-brainer, but too many demand gen marketers that I speak to today are kind of just hoping on a wing and a prayer here that somebody, that maybe this is the email that's going to get that person who after 60 days has not engaged or not replied or not opened or not clicked anything. This is going to be the one, right? The reality is it's not, right? So really double down on the people that are engaging with you today to further their engagement, et cetera. And then last, create a data-driven feedback loop, right? So go beyond your standard kind of firmographics like company size and location and use deeper intelligence, like things I mentioned before, engagement history, relevant tech stack if you have that information or if that's pertinent to your business, and other attributes, some of the other things that I talked about, or title, previous behavior, etc. Leverage behavior and intent data in your database to target your email programs. So this is kind of that buying journey. I think I talked about acronyms before in terms of like TOFU, MOFU, and BOFU. And guess what? Those are just more acronyms. One of the things that I've implemented at the past few teams, past few demand gen organizations that I've led it, is this more granular view. What does it really look like when somebody is just in the initial stage of stages of engaging with us. Like just engaging at the highest level, like whether it was reading one of our very high level ebooks, whether it was maybe subscribing to some video content that we provided, just at the highest level, they're just starting to engage. They just know what drift is. Versus what does that look like when somebody's educating themselves? When somebody's trying to educate themselves on, hey, how can I improve my website conversion rate? Hey, how can I generate more MQLs for my organization? What's the mindset of those people, and how are those different at those two different stages, right? Like that's the kind of, and I talked about human elements before. This speaks to that human element as well, which is really digging into the mindset of the people, not the acronyms that are here, right? Versus what does it look like when I move into research phase? Like, great, now I know I have a conversion rate problem. What are all the ways I can go solve that conversion rate issue? Great, now I know that there are people on my website that I'm not able to engage with. Like, how do I get a better engagement rate on my website? Those are very different things versus like, hey, how do I, what is the standard conversion rate for a website, which happens up at Educate, right? Versus evaluate. So now I know I have a problem. I've researched how I can solve my problem. And now I'm evaluating all the ways that I can go solve that. Until finally you get to justify, right? Which is like, okay, I've evaluated all solutions. I picked one of them. Now I need to justify this investment for my manager, for my boss, so that I can come up with a strong ROI analysis and a strong case about why we need to make this investment in our business. And so all of those things. So really kind of teasing that out more than, because I think it's too easy to get caught up in this tofu, mofu, bofu, like, oh, we think everybody knows what that means, but what are the real underlying things that are happening within those stages? And what are the questions people are asking themselves? And how can we help them answer those questions, right? And so really that to me is how we've executed this. We're trying to execute this at Drift and in previous organizations. But ongoing database maintenance is critical because email marketing databases naturally degrade at about 2% every month. When you add that 2% up every month, give or take a couple points, that's how ZoomInfo is getting to that 30%, right? And so 2% every month in a pre-pandemic world, in a world where there were not, where we didn't have an unemployment rate as high as we do today, where organizations haven't had to make sacrifices from budget perspective as well as headcount perspective. Those are very different things. And then lastly, already mentioned, we've got an awesome kind of swag raffle here for you guys that we're going to raffle off. But everybody, I don't want to just have one lucky person get something. Everybody should feel free to go get the high performance email marketing toolkit. In this toolkit, what you're going to find is couple things. You're going to find, one, we've got the ultimate guide to email marketing that we've written. This is end to end. The book is awesome. I find myself going back to it time and time again. We also wrote 15 conversational email templates that you can actually just steal, that you can grab, steal, please steal away, right? And then we've got 5 email templates to make your marketing outreach more effective, more empathetic. That's been a godsend for our SDR organization to use too. But there's also a ton of virtual courses like where you can learn from experts, not just at Drift, but Litmus, Digitas, as well as Drift. And then there's also an email pipeline calculator. You can email Caitlin, who's on this call, who's on my team, and very lucky to get to work with her every day. csteely@drift.com. To get that offer, but would welcome everybody to do it for free. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
This is Cam. I can get us started. I kind of just have a high-level one, Kate. So we talked about like increased churn, people switching jobs or changing roles in companies kind of at a higher rate now. So you kind of touched on it makes a lot of sense to identify those folks in your database, either purge them or identify like the correct new contact. Think through that a little bit more. Like, do you think it makes sense to put increased emphasis in trying to if people are switching jobs, capture the new contacts at the new job essentially. So using like your Zoom infos and your lean data to like identify new contacts at accounts you might already be working.
Yes, 100%. And we do that all the time. We do that both with using the messages that we get with like this person's no longer at the organization anymore. You can follow up with X. And then we also do that by looking at job change alerts that we get from again, our data provider is Zoom Info, but we look at that as well.
Excellent.
And we look at that on both sides, Cam, because I think the other kind of golden nugget that I think a lot of organizations kind of overlook is where you had a customer at one organization, then that person goes to another organization. Guess what? That's an amazing target for you to go work, right? Because that person's already sold on the value that you've provided to their original organization, and you can go make them a champion again at their next organization.
Great point.
I've got a question, Kate. By the way, thank you for coming and speaking for our mug. I'm sorry I missed my intro. I'm Katie Olson. I'm the other co-organizer. How have you created buy-in with your teams to get rid of these unresponsive leads? In more than one organization I've been in, it's been really hard to talk the marketing directors into deleting records. I think they're always like holding out hope that they'll finally respond.
Yeah.
What strategies have you used for that?
So a couple things. One is I've pulled kind of the benchmark data, Katie, that some of the stuff that I threw in there, and I know mentioning Eloqua to a Marketo user group, it doesn't go a long way. It's just Adobe doesn't have that stat. But I do use some of that benchmark data of saying like, look, we have this many records, and according to this benchmark data, each one of these is costing us $11 a year, and then annualize that number and showed that to people. The next thing, and I certainly understand why marketing directors, many of them feel that way, because they feel like the size of their database says something about their work, which is unfortunate, right? It's not about the size, it's about the quality, right? And so really having that conversation around like, look, not only are these costing us, but they are actually going to prohibit us from being able to reach the people that are engaging with us. If we continue down this path, right? The biggest point, Katie, that I've always been able to that really get people behind is like, when we get on a blacklist, it's going to take us months to get off, and you're going to shut down the revenue.
Yes, that's how it works. That's just, sorry to jump in, but that's like you were about to go there before you went there. I was saying it on mute, and that's a way I think, that is, it hits both sellers and marketers alike, because it's usually something that'll impact not only the marketing and Marketo sent emails, but those things that your sellers and SDRs and MDRs or CDRs are sending through Gmail and or outreach, and all the way to HR. So it's really unfortunate, but like something that I think is also really common now that we have people using tools like outreach, which are amazing. And at the same time, like there's also governance and admin things that need to be set up in order to use that without damaging your potential email deliverability and things like that. But that's a nail. That one always, I feel like, is an unfortunate way to approach it, but also one that does show results.
I mean, this was a tough. I can look back on this now and say it with a smile on my face, but I certainly couldn't at the time. I worked for an organization that had an issue where we didn't get on a blacklist, but our rating was so bad that normal spam filters were picking us up, and emails from our own CEO could not get delivered to people that he was trying to communicate to. And so I share that if you can use that artifact to convince folks, it is not an easy conversation to have with your CEO that like, I'm sorry that we can't deliver your email, or I'm sorry that you can't actually get responses from people that you want to talk about mergers and acquisitions with because you can't get into their inbox, right? There's a little bit of FUD, I think, that you need to use in terms of convincing folks that are not on the right side. And I think the last thing, Katie, that I would say is like, sell it into sales and have sales push marketing if you're really that stubborn, right? I don't usually like to go that route, but kind of need to sell in sometimes and push from other ways. And so like that is definitely a mechanism that I've used in the past as well.
Thank you very much, Kate.
Sure. Molly, thanks for that. That was great.
I have another one. I'm really interested in the idea. You mentioned the data waterfall, and this is kind of a slightly off of the core topic here, but something I think is super interesting, like using multiple data sources in a structured, prioritized order to try to get the fullest picture of somebody's data. I'm wondering, like, I've seen that done with a Marketo program that actually does that's the brain that does the checking at different sources and then evaluates, oh, did we get the data? I think it could likely also be done in Salesforce. I'm just curious, like, what is the structure that waterfall is kind of like built in, or what system is the one that's managing that, I guess?
Cam, I would love to be able to tell you that, but I'll be honest, there are people much smarter than me.
Okay.
That actually the folks that we're looking for a leader for, I am the person that says like, hey, we should do this, and then they press the magic button and make it work, which I know there's no real button, but they work the magic. Caitlin can take that, Cam, as a question to follow up with Lynn Tan, who is on our marketing ops team, who's absolutely incredible. And now forget her name and never email her about any opportunity that you have. But she's awesome, and she built that for us, so she could provide that insight for you, Cam.
I could tell you what we do. Also, I mean, we built one in. When I started at Fastly, our sales ops, or my director, my manager, and the director of sales ops had just worked with someone on the enterprise systems team to set up this data enrichment hierarchy in native so that we could do this exact thing, so that we didn't have any one enrichment source over or writing to native fields, but also unless they were doing so through this enrichment hierarchy. I've had the opportunity since then to like take it and run with it, which is, I'm not building it by any means, but we're doing this in Salesforce. So that way that we can have special validation rules when the data value pick lists don't match up. So for instance, in ZoomInfo, you're not, there's a lot less flexibility for your value mapping than there is in lead space. So like when we've got like some territory, I can't even say the right words when I'm talking about third and fourth source things, like sometimes we'll pull in intricately, like, just like mapping all of the values and different things for, let's say, employee or revenue ranges. It's easier for us to rely on the Salesforce sides of things to do that. But that is because we're taking enrichment. We have ZoomInfo connected to Salesforce and LeadSpace connected to Marketo. So I think there's a lot of ways you could do it, but like, I think the way we've done it seems really cool. When we've started to hire more Salesforce developers, it's become even more cool. Like we're talking about, the V3 of it and how to update these native fields, because currently we're not updating anything that is populated. So I'm working on a refresh of our enrichment with LeadSpace currently, and I hope to do a V3 where it's like, now if the original source is updated, then the native field would then be updated potentially. I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing, but Kate, I was like listening to you and how like you're like, okay, Clearbit, then ZoomInfo, and I was like taking notes. I'm like, okay, this is interesting to see how other people even, I don't know what the right word is, rank the data value of each provider, just in like, especially that market changing, like ZoomInfo specifically, like buying and, of all these companies. I could go down a rabbit hole. So sorry for jumping in again.
Yeah, Molly, I couldn't agree more. I know it's interesting to hear how everybody else is handling that.
And I've also seen a couple clients of mine where they feel like a source has better data for specific industries. So not only will they check specific fields to a certain source, they'll check manufacturing will go to Dun & Bradstreet or whatever the matching is there, and then have kind of I guess that would probably be a good V2 of like this waterfall where you can kind of create streams for different industries or whatever that differentiator is.
Or regions even potentially.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's really interesting. I never even considered something like that.
Other questions? Otherwise, I can circle back to one because I think probably most Marketo people's ears perk up when you say no HTML and emails, Kate. So I just wanted to like kind of double click on that and make sure I'm following what we mean. Like, are we saying the email appears to be written from like a human being, like it looks like an Outlook email coming by, like we're avoiding even like an HTML header with like the standard logo and nav and that kind of thing?
That's correct.
Got it.
And when we do use images, um, which occasionally we do, they're most often humorous in nature.
Sure.
I'm thinking about a webinar. We sent a webinar reminder that had a GIF of one of the folks on our team, George, who is like literally counting down the time in between on putting it on a whiteboard to the webinar. And sent that as a gift, but it would look just like, Cam, you sent me an email from your Gmail account to my Gmail account. That's what it looks like. There's no HTML, so we don't have, let me be clear, we're in compliance. We include the opt-out link in the bottom and all those in the footer and all that stuff, but we don't have a header that's like some really sexy Drift logo on the top or buttons for elements that are hyperlinked to a CTA. They're just links.
Got it. Awesome. Interesting. I think even if people are suspect or hesitant to try that, I mean, that's a pretty easy like A/B test to start running, right? Is like do an HTML version and do a text-only version of an email.
It doesn't get much easier. I mean, Marketo does it for you, right?
Yeah.
Like Marketo gives you a text-only version, so it's pretty simple to test.
Awesome.
I just love that recommendation, honestly. Back when I was doing a lot of email metrics, it was always intriguing to me that the engaged people respond to text-only emails.
Exactly.
And yet our design teams are still enamored with wanting to have everything. I mean, probably not just the design teams, but having very glitzy, big emails. We've even had requests to add video and animated GIFs and things like that. And so it's just nice to hear that the plainer emails are actually performing well.
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing, Katie, is like, yeah, include video in it. Cool. I would send Cam a video of something that I had to. Like, great. I can easily include that like image of the video there so that you can play it or whatever. We do that, but and actually have a tool called Drift Video that enables you to do that. But that doesn't mean that you need to worry about. I'll tell you right now, I've never been so happy to not worry about where my TL and TR and TD tags are and where they're ending up and how that's and all those other things, right? I don't have those conversations here. Think about the time that if you looked across the organization from the design team to whoever's executing on the email, right? Usually a marketing manager is spending in all of that time, plus the QA time that you're spending resolving the open tag issues that you have in there. So I think what could you, and then ask yourself, what could you do with that time, right? Everybody's got that wish list of, man, I just wish we had time to get to this thing. Could you get to that thing if you weren't spending all that time like massaging and these high gloss emails for your org? Probably, you know.
You could build your data waterfall.
Exactly. Cam, I love that data quality on industries component. That's not something I've looked at, and we should look at that for sure.
All right. Do we have any other last